angular and not a lot of hair, and all the rest of them look like suave kind of film stars.
To say, Darren.
We all play our part, Paul. I thought you couldn't hear me. I thought I was all right. It was really interesting seeing you all engage with the sheep, and we'll go through that in a little while. The thing I found interesting was how many of you were not remembering the date, as Carol was saying. Oh, I remember this happened then. I was doing this. We were there, and it's sometimes that we remember what we were doing when. You know, there's the thing is that what were you doing when JFK was assassinated? You know, Andy and I, we were talking to my brother not long ago about remembering where we were when it was announced that Princess Diana had died. And it's kind of, we all remember certain things. It's not necessarily the event you particularly remember or the date, but you remember what you were doing. And so we'll come to them in a little while. But I think it's really interesting that Easter, in my opinion, is the most important day of the year. To the point where at Christmas, I think I went to Sarah's church and did a talk called "What's the Point of Christmas?" And I pointed out the whole point of Christmas is that it points to Easter. And everybody left with a nail with some ribbon tied on it so they could tie it onto their Christmas tree to remember that actually we need Christmas. The whole point of Christmas is that Jesus was going to die on a cross during Easter that changed the whole world for everyone all the time. We stopped with my brother up in Hull on. Someone's going to come over again. So someone over there. Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry. It's fine. I've been heckled by bigger people than that one. Went to see my brother on Boxing Day, and he told me that he works for Tesco's, and he was finding it very amusing that on Boxing Day he knew there were pallet after pallet after pallet of Easter eggs being delivered to his store, and he was on day off. And apparently Tesco's order so many thousands of Easter eggs, but once they're in, they're in. They don't restock. And so all the stores try and clamour for as many Easter eggs as they can order. And he was getting text messages from his deputy going, "What have you done?" You know, Boxing Day, this whole warehouse is full of Easter eggs. But I bet what there wasn't there were Christian Easter cards. You know, if you go to a supermarket, you'll find lots of Easter eggs, you'll find lots of lovely Easter cards with bunnies and eggs and daffodils and all that sort of stuff on, but very rarely do you actually see the real reason we celebrate Easter. I think we've forgotten. And it is, to me, the most important day in history, Victory Day. And that's why I wanted you to start thinking about dates. Dates that were important to you, dates that weren't important to you. What you remembered, what you didn't. Maybe for you, one of the most important dates was the day you got married. I'm not going to ask anybody to try and remember the date, in case some of us get into trouble. Or maybe the day you had your child, or the date you lost somebody, or the date something significant happened, like maybe you got a degree, or you passed your GCSEs, or something like that. Sometimes dates like that are important. Sometimes when you pass a milestone, why do we only really celebrate together when it's a birthday with a 0 at the end? We all do it, don't we? Because we think it's a big milestone, a big something to be passed. It's an important day. But actually it's no more important than the day before or the day after. Whereas Easter Day, to me, then changed the world. So let's have a little look at the sheet and see how many. I've already had one person tell me I've got one wrong, so don't blame me, blame Google. So what happened on December the 1st, 1955? Rosa Parks was arrested. If you don't know who Rosa Parks was, that's your homework for later. Number 2, December the 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor. Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. Number 3, January the 2nd, 1968. It was, well done.
That was either December the 3rd for Africa, 1967. 3rd of May is UK in 1968, or in the US, January the 2nd, 1968.
Right, January the 2nd, 1968 is the first successful heart transplant. July the 13th, 1985. Live Aid concert. July 20th, 1969.
bringing this out has completely ruined some of the numbers.
Yeah, well, because you trust a thing called Google,
Yes.
and if they don't get right, they ain't right. March the 30th, 1932. Remember who it was?
We went for Jamie Johnson or Amelia.
Amelia Earhart. I forgot where we are now. 7. 1994, May the 10th. Nelson Mandela became South African president. November 22nd, some people say 1963. So phone Google, not me. JFK. November the 9th, 1989. Berlin Wall. 4th of May 1979. Margaret Thatcher. 2nd of June 1953. Coronation. 3rd of December 1992. First text message sent. 29th of July 1981. Charles and Diana got married. 16th of August 1977. Elvis Presley died. 30th of July 1966. What a team. There you go. So it's amazing how many of you, as I say, remembered those because you remembered what was going on at the time or where you were or who you were with. But actually these are all kind of important dates, but dates that won't change that much. But we're still remembering Easter 2,000 plus years later. And that's because it's the significant day. And I want to encourage you, as we move towards Easter, whether you stick with Connect on a Thursday and follow these things through, whether you come and chat with Sarah on a Friday, or whether you just spend time at home thinking about it. It's not all about eggs. It's not all about chocolate. That actually, there's 3 things I think we need to remember about Easter, about that victory that Jesus won on the cross. The first thing is that it's a victory to be remembered. Who's good at remembering birthdays?
Only my own.
Only your own. I'm not going to mention that every person that put their hand up then was a lady. Because Andy's now pretending she's not listening. Because in our house, it's the other way around. Hello. Goodbye. In our house, it's the other way around. Andy would be the first to tell you she's not good with dates.
Yeah, go on. You can tell them.
The login to my phone is my birthday.
Oh no.
It's my date of birth. How many times a week is Andy on my phone going, what's the login? She just hasn't got a head for numbers. But actually, I want to encourage us all that Easter is a date of victory, a day we need to remember. It's not about birthdays. It doesn't matter if you can't remember somebody's birthday because you can always write it down or put it in your diary. But actually, Easter Day, even though Easter Day moves every year, for a reason I don't really understand, it's, yeah. But we do need to remember that Easter is about Jesus and not about chocolate. And it's clear that the people who we heard a little bit about on there didn't want people to remember it. They didn't want people to be talking about it after Jesus died. This is a little bit from the book of Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew, and this is about the guards. So it says, while the women were on their way, some of the guards went into the city and reported to the chief priests everything that had happened. When the chief priests had met with the elders and they devised a plan, they gave the soldiers a large sum of money, telling them, you are to say, his disciples came during the night and stole him away while we were asleep. If this report gets to the governor, we will satisfy him and keep you out of trouble. So the soldiers took the money and did as they were instructed. And this story has been widely circulated among the Jews to this very day. So they didn't want anybody to know that not only had Jesus died, but that Jesus beat death, that the stone was rolled away from the tomb and actually he lived. So they concocted a plan so that people would forget the real reason that Easter was now being celebrated 2,000 years on. They wanted to stop the facts. They wanted the truth to be forgotten about. And unfortunately in the world we live in today, as I say, Easter's all about chocolate and eggs and bunnies. It's got very little to do with Jesus. But actually if we remember, it changes everything. If you go to church on Easter Sunday, many churches, not every church, but many churches will say, you'll greet people by saying, he is risen. What's the answer? He is risen indeed. That's not something that's written anywhere. It's something we've learnt over time. And it's a way of remembering that that day is important. But it's more than just about remembering. I think it's something we need to remember, but it's also something we need to receive ourselves. That in our heart we know that it's not just a story. It's something significant for us. And if you read on the story after the death and the resurrection, it didn't stop there. So many times when we hear the story, it's about, that's it. But even in the little video we saw, it was talking about, actually, Jesus came back and met with people. He talked to people. He shared stories with people. He shared explanations with people because he wanted them to understand. So, the women, as the two Marys hurried away from the tomb after seeing the stone rolled away and Jesus' body not being there, they met with the risen Jesus. Greetings, he said. Can you imagine? They're completely freaked out. They came to him, clasped his feet and worshipped him. Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me. So not only have they just met somebody that they think is dead, but now they've got to go and tell other people, we've seen this dead man and he wants to meet us. He wants us to go and see him. Then the disciples, his best friends. So Mary Magdalene goes to the disciples and says that she's seen the Lord. And then she says this, and then it says this, on the evening of that first day of the week, when the disciples were together, with the doors locked for fear of the Jews coming, Jesus came and stood among them and said, peace be with you. What would it be like now if we stood we were all in this room, the doors were shut, and then all of a sudden somebody arrived. Without opening the door, just was there. You'd be freaked out, wouldn't you? You'd be completely freaked out. And yet Jesus has come back to see his disciples to say, look, this is what I told you, and everything is going to be okay. Thomas, who we all know gets called Doubting Thomas. I think he's human Thomas, to be honest. I think he's got no more doubts than the rest of us might have. Thomas wasn't there when that happened. Even those who doubted that Jesus was alive, Jesus still wanted to meet with them and assure them that everything was going to be okay. And so when Thomas hears about it, he says, unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were and put my hand into the side where they stabbed him, I will not believe. But actually, what did Jesus do? Jesus, a week later, came back to the same house. Thomas was there, and he said, peace be with you. And then said, Thomas, come and put your finger here. Come and put your hand here. Stop doubting and believe. Jesus recognised that we were all going to maybe freak out or maybe misunderstand or just not really get what's going on. It doesn't matter if we're like the two women at the beginning who just are so overwhelmed by seeing Jesus, or Thomas who just doubts everything. Jesus still says, it's okay. It's okay to doubt. It's okay to be overwhelmed. It's okay to be just totally confused, because this will all make sense one day. And Jesus knew that Thomas and others needed a bit more help. And I don't know about you, but for me, Jesus has done that for me. When I've had doubts, when I've had kind of a muddy idea of what Easter's about and what difference it makes for me, Jesus has always kind of just been there and just kind of given me that relationship, that idea of actually it's just not me talking to myself and reading a book. It's actually a relationship with somebody that died and beat death. And that's what it changes for me. There's a great verse right in the back of the Bible, in the last book of the Bible, called Revelation. In Revelation 3:20, it says, here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with them, and he with me. So if that sense of actually, yes, he went and saw the women, yes, he went and saw the disciples, yes, he met with Thomas and lots of other people, but he can still meet with us today. And it doesn't matter if you're a Christian for donkey's years, or somebody that's not quite there, or thinks it's a load of rubbish. Jesus still wants to meet with you. And this is an opportunity this Easter to hear that he will stand outside the door. He's a gentleman. He won't force the door open. He won't kick the door in. He'll stand outside the door and knock. And if you open the door and go, oh, Jesus, and welcome him in, then he will come. And he will be part of that time with you. He will be with you, he will meet with you, he will listen to you, he will talk with you. And actually then it changes. So it's not just a victory to be believed, it's a victory that we need to receive ourselves. Because otherwise it just stays in the book. We need to receive it ourselves. And then the third thing, and I've nearly finished, is that it's a victory, it's a date, it's a story that needs to be retold. That's the only way it's got to now. 2,000 plus years later is because we still keep talking about it. Those who believe in Jesus believe we've been told, we've been commissioned by Jesus to go and tell other people. And so that's why we do Connect. That's why we do Connect on Sunday. That's why Sarah's going to have an Easter chat. Hopefully not with herself. That's why we got other stuff planned for later in the year, because we believe that Jesus is the answer. Jesus' death and resurrection, that's the most important story in history. More important than Nelson Mandela becoming the first black president of South Africa. More important than men landing on the moon. More important than Paul's birthday. I'm sorry, Paul, it's true. And actually, the way we share that is we retell it. Yes, we retell it from the Bible and the stories that we know were put together as the stories of Jesus, but actually also our experiences. And just like Carol was saying when she was going through the dates, going, oh, I remember we were on holiday that week, or John was doing this, or we need to tell the stories of how Jesus affects us. And if you talk to any Christian, they'll tell you when they first engaged with Jesus, when they first maybe met with Jesus, when they first responded to something Jesus called them to do. And actually that can then draw you closer to Jesus. So I hope in the coming weeks, not only will you look forward to receiving your Easter egg on your birthday, but actually you'll engage with the true story of Easter as well. And I hope that in the coming weeks, as we work through this series, you'll see there are so many different aspects of the story. It's not just as simple as a man who died on a cross and then came back to life. There's so much more to it than that. I hope that this is the start of a journey to Easter for you. I'm happy to chat to any of you at the end, and as I say, keep coming back each week. And if you can't be here, watch it on Facebook or on YouTube, because I think it will just take us ever closer to the story that actually is the most important story that ever happened. Amen.